And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View for a little ladies' tea. Tonight, we are joined by the host of Underreported Stories with Chrissy Clark. Chrissy Clark herself. Hey, Chrissy, thanks for coming back as always. And analysis writer at The Daily Caller, Mary Rooke. Mary and Chrissy, welcome, ladies. Look, here's what I want to talk about just to start here. Is anybody buying that we are in a full revamp of Kamala Harris? I mean, I feel like you go back to May and the press was, don't forget this, guys. The press was really talking about, should Joe Biden actually choose a different running mate than Kamala Harris? All of a sudden, here we are, end of July, and now we're supposed to just, Chrissy, buy that everybody thinks Kamala Harris is like, this is the one. This is history in the making. We got to get behind Kamala Harris. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, no, she wasn't the border czar. No, she wasn't the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. Here's my question, Chrissy. Is anybody buying the full revamp and shine that they're trying to put on Kamala Harris right now? What do you think?
Well, I have actually bought into a singular Kamala Harris quote, which she said, 18 to 24-year-olds are some of the stupidest people on the planet. And to which I say, I agree. I spend most of my day on TikTok. It is part of my job to do so. And when I'm on TikTok, I see a bunch of 18 to 24-year-olds proclaiming that they are going to be voting for Kamala Harris because she is a Black woman. Well, congratulations. You are going to get that. And she has no qualifications whatsoever. You know, I remember I was covering the campaign, the 2020 campaign, back in 2019, and as part of my job, I was a cub reporter, like first year out of college. I had every Democratic nominees or potential nominees biography, and I had to read all of them, and I will never forget, it was December, and I was maybe 2 chapters into Kamala's book, and it was the worst one of all of them, by the way. And she dropped out, and I was on some retreat. I shut it and I threw it in the trash can, never to be seen again. Don't have the copy anymore.
Wow.
Was just $20 I'd never see again. Whatever. Yeah. All I learned from her and all of my time covering her was that she's just failed upward, which is better than tripping up the stairs in some cases, but not always.
Yeah. So, look, Mary, I feel like there is this effort to obviously put a lot of fake momentum behind her, convince the American people that we should all be excited about this, that everybody's jazzed up about Kamala Harris. And to Chrissy's point, she has failed upward. Like, there's no doubt this is a person who has failed as vice president, as far as I can see. I'm still waiting for anybody to tell me what is one great accomplishment of Kamala Harris's entire career, let alone as vice president. And typically, if you are VP, you are kind of always auditioning, as far as I understand, for the role as president. I don't think it was a secret that Joe Biden wasn't doing well. We need to, first of all, assess the cover-up that went on there and Kamala Harris's role in that. But knowing that, couldn't she have done anything, Mary? Mary, can you tell me one thing Kamala Harris has actually accomplished other than allowing 11 million plus illegals into our country? I'll let you go ahead.
You know what she has accomplished? She's been able to create so many GIFs and memes out of all of her speeches that she sent us. I mean, some of them is just great content. But if you look at the recent Wall Street Journal poll this morning that came out that was talking about how Kennedy weighs on the ticket and how much he's like giving to Kamala Harris, at the bottom of that, kind of hidden towards the end, it talks about how voters still blame Kamala Harris for things like the illegal immigrant crisis, crime, foreign policy, all the things, you know, the economy, all the things that were holding Biden down and his campaign are going to hold Kamala down. And when we talk about this honeymoon, it's going to be short-lived. Of course, they're going to get excited at the fact that they don't have a half-dead guy leading the ticket. That's going to energize the 18 to 24-year-olds like Chrissy Clark, you know, the ones that we're going to sit out regardless, you know, with Biden at the 24? Top.
Oh, I noticed you didn't tell me that, Mary, but that's okay. I'm just kidding. Totally fine.
I think that 28. Those voters are, of course, going to slide to Democrats. It's been nothing covered up on the fact that Republicans haven't been able to sway those voters in large mass yet. However, We are taking a number of single males. We have married men and we have married women. And those people are looking at crime. They're looking at illegal immigration. They're looking at the economy. And they're going, how do I raise a family? How do I afford a family? How do I keep my family from going over into another foreign war? And those policies, are going to be the thing that makes or breaks this election. They're going to want to put it on the entertainment industry. They're going to want to say, oh, look, this new star came out. She's brat, and take all of these slogans and make it seem like she's just the most fun aunt that you could possibly think of, when in reality, she's the one that's giving your kids meth behind the back door.
Yeah, you definitely, I hate when people give my kids meth behind the back door. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Look, it's really true. What it all comes down to is the fact that Kamala Harris has to own the same policies that Joe Biden was trying to run on, because let's not forget, she was hand in hand with Joe Biden. They were step for step with all of these bad policies that have led to people's lives really being challenging right now in this country. And so, people are constantly asking, I'm the co-chair of the RNC, people are constantly asking, well, what's the strategy as you go against Kamala? And to be honest, she still has the exact same policies Joe Biden had that have taken this country in the wrong direction, if not even more radical, because again, I'll restate it for anybody who's tried to take it off the internet. You might try to take it off GovTrack or whatever it was that rated her as the most liberal senator, but she does have very extreme views. And the thing that I'll say overall is, if anyone actually believes that Joe Biden has been running the country up until now and is still currently actually running the country, obviously we know there is some cabal behind the scenes. There's some group of people who is pulling the strings and the levers in the White House and in Washington, D.C. These are the same people, by the way, who hoisted Joe Biden and said, you know what, you're done here, pulled the coup on him, forced him to leave his position. And they're going to be the same people who are running the show when Kamala Harris is in there. The crazy part to me, Chrissy, is none of these people were elected. We don't know who they are, exactly what is going on, but Kamala Harris is to blame as far as Americans think. 92% of people polled actually believe that she is one of the people responsible for the cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline, for the fact that she would go out on TV, go out in interviews, go out in any setting when she was asked and say, Joe Biden is fine. There's no problem here with Joe Biden, knowing full well Joe Biden's not fine. So that, I think, is going to be problematic for her. And then you get into who are these people and what is really going on. But Chrissy, do you agree, even if it is Kamala Harris who's voted in, the same people are going to be running the show because they're the people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes in D.C.?
I actually don't think this is necessarily specifically bad for Kamala Harris. I think it's bad for the Democrats writ large who rely on sheep activists to get them through elections. I think that watching Joe Biden or watching the White House cover up Joe Biden's cognitive decline is actually going to be a red pill moment for a lot of people. I'm not necessarily saying that you're going to see a lot of people in 2024 pull the switch for Donald Trump, but it's going to be a COVID-like moment for a lot of Democrats who were trustworthy of or believed the government to be trustworthy. I know, I feel bad for them too, but we all have those moments where we wake up and realize, whoa, I can't trust these people anymore. And I think that this, for a lot of Democrats, free-thinking Democrats who didn't realize the spell they were under, this was their red pill moment. And I'm very glad it happened in this way, honestly, because it just means that we're going to have more free thinkers in America writ large.
Which I think is always a good thing. I want people to do their own research and get their own information. I mean, my gosh, if you just take things at face value, they're lying to you. They've been lying to you. And I think you're right, Chrissy. I don't know how anybody can trust this party. I've been saying that for a while. These are the people who lied to your face about Joe Biden. He's still, I guess, still acting as president of the United States. I don't know what's going on there. But, you know, Chuck Schumer, Mary, was on one of the weekend shows over the weekend, and he was directly asked about his role in pushing Biden out. And he asked, you know, he was asked, did you force him out? Did you tell him he had to leave? And he goes, oh, I'm not going to get into the specifics. And then he went into all of these accomplishments of Joe Biden's accomplishments. We'll put those in air quotes. So I guess we'll interpret that as yes. But then you also have this investigative journalist. His name is Seymour Hersh. And this guy's like in his 80s. He's like real gritty. He's one of the like old school guys. He claims that, not that this will surprise anybody, that Obama was deeply involved in the coup against Biden and threatened that if he didn't step down on his own, then Kamala Harris, along with some of other, the other people who have to be in on invoking the 25th Amendment, were going to do that, and they were going to oust Biden as president of the United States. So he was forced to do this. I would love to know, Mary, do you think anybody believes that Joe Biden really did this big selfless act and said, you know what, I'm going to take this one for the team, and I believe that, this is the best thing for the country? I don't think there's any other way that they would have gotten Joe Biden out of running for president other than forcing him out because they said that they were going to remove him from office. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the biggest tell in that interview with Chuck Schumer was obviously hidden closer to the bottom, where he starts talking about now Joe Biden can leave with his legacy intact. And by saying something like that is such a big tell, because essentially they're saying, we threatened him with saying, you're going to go out as the senile president. You're going to go out as the guy who drugged the Democrat Party down, to the depths of the sea. You're going to go out as the guy who ruined our chances of winning the White House again. And instead, now he gets to go out as this great savior of democracy. And look what he did as the hero of America, to come in and allow Kamala Harris to save the day for the Democrats who are just trying to save the country from totalitarianism. But in reality, what's going on behind the scenes is that Obama has set this up from the beginning. If you remember that California fundraiser that he did, and he was guiding Biden off stage. Yep. That was the first, I wrote this in a piece a while back, that was really the first mark of when the coup started. He's a showmanship. He knows exactly what he's doing. Obama could have gone to the other side of Biden and gently taken him off stage and not made it been so obvious that Biden didn't know where he was going. But he went on purpose to the other side, all the way around him, grabbed him off like his elderly grandfather who had lost his way in the ice cream shop, and started carrying him off stage. And that's when all the, hell broke loose.
People would talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So people would talk about it. And it really held the media cycle for a very long time, to the point where the White House had to come out and call it, what did they call it? Not a deep fake, but a cheap fake.
Oh, yeah.
A cheap fake. This is the start of the cheap fake gate of the Republican Party. And look what they're doing. They're editing all these videos to make Biden look so much older. And then that was the wheels that started turning on this machine that got him down.
I mean, I would say, Chrissy, I sort of feel like, Mary, I think you're 100% right. I think that this has been a plan in the works for a while. They've known Joe Biden shouldn't be president. They know that this is such a dangerous thing, not for the country. Don't kid yourself. They're not worried about you and me. They're not worried about the American people. They're worried about them retaining power, right? They need the Democrats and their group to stay in power. And they're like, oh my God, Joe Biden, what do we do? So you start with the fundraiser. And I would argue, and I said this back whenever they announced that they wanted to do this early debate between Trump and Biden. I said, why on earth would they want such an early debate? Believe me, we were thrilled with it, because the sooner I get those two on a stage, the better for our campaign and our candidate and the public to see really the difference between these two men. And I would argue that was also part of the orchestrated plan to get him out of that
there was
position.
No upside for Biden in that at all. And that was the crazy thing. When I was looking at it and we would talk about it in our ed meetings, I'd be like, what is the upside for Biden here? If anything, it's just going to make him look bad, because we all knew and have been saying it for so many years now that Biden was not there mentally and had been failing as a president for so long. And the only explanation is that was just the nail in the coffin for his career.
I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a different viewpoint, though. I definitely thought that Biden was going to make it based on the research, the backdoor conversations that I was hearing about Biden's personality, that he just wasn't going to step down. He was going to try and get reelected.
Oh man, yeah.
Yes, and then as soon as he got reelected, he was going to step down and make sure that Kamala didn't have to go through this process, because Kamala is Kamala. She's not exactly the fan favorite. But the debate performance, I think, accelerated that. I did not see him stepping down before January of next year if he were to win re-election.
Well, and I think what clearly happened, Chrissy, is that the writing was on the wall, and they were like, oh my God, the numbers are so bad that there's no way that we can, no way he can win, no matter how many ballots and suitcases, whatever they're throwing out there.
Lara, when your calculation is that Kamala Harris is a better fit for your Democratic ticket, it's obviously going really poorly for you.
But what is the history going to say when we look back on this time is what I wonder. I mean, you have 14.5 million people who have cast votes for Joe Biden, who did, and by the way, you had a lot of those people who voted like unaffiliated or whatever from Minnesota and Michigan specifically. They're sending delegates to the convention in Chicago they have so many people who did not vote for Joe Biden. But what about the ones who did? What about the 14.5 million people who feel like, wait a minute, did I not get a say? What about RFK Jr.? What about Dean Phillips? What about the people they pushed out knowing that their guy was going to have a hard time and knowing he probably shouldn't be running for president anyway? I got to tell you, it's so frightening to see, of course, the party who talks about democracy is on the ballot. This is the democratic process. I know we're a constitutional republic, but this is the democratic process that we have to go through. And this is who we are as a country. And it really is foundational to us as Americans. And they have just totally thrown it in the trash can, Chrissy. Does that matter to people, though? Do people care about that out there? Because I would feel very disenfranchised if I was a Democrat voter right now, God forbid, because I would probably look very different than this. But go ahead.
Well, I think the red-pilled people will obviously feel the way that you and I feel, but I think that your sheep are not going to feel that way. You can already see it in the social media content that you see online. They don't care. They just want to win. It's not about what's best for America. It's not about what's best for them, their pocketbooks, their family. It's about what's best for the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
it is so
and
sad.
History is written by the victor. And so if Democrats stay in power, you already see it like on MSNBC, a famous historian went on there the night that Kamala got the endorsement from Joe Biden. And he sat there with, the biggest grin on his face. And he just kept saying, Joe Biden is going to go down as the greatest president of all time. We're going to make sure that happens. And that's them telling us that that's going to be in, our children's history books when they get into high school. They're already writing the fluff pieces. They're already writing the paragraphs for kids to memorize. And that's what it's going to go down as. It's not going to go down as this slight to democracy. It's not going to go down as like a slight to Democrat voters at all. It's going to go down as, look at what a selfless man he was.
Just like they have in textbooks right now, this is true out in the country, that one of the reasons Donald Trump won the 2016 election was Russian interference. I wish I was making that up, but it's real. It's actually in textbooks. What? So you're right. Of course, the victors are the ones who write history. You're in deep, and you're in the midst of a very consequential presidential election, by the way, when you got tech interference going on, when they're interfering in the election already, and it's happening. Google is accused of election interference because they have been, this is kind of crazy to me, and I'll be honest, it's disgusting, as the daughter-in-law of Donald Trump. If you type in assassination attempt into Google, it like autofills, Mary, oftentimes whenever you do that, they now do not have Donald Trump as an option at all. I'll read you some of the things that come up. It's not Donald Trump. So if you type it in there, here's what you get. Assassination attempt on. Oh, and by the way, they say the reason that this didn't actually come out that way is because they don't want any political figures to be in there. Ready? Assassination attempt on Truman. Assassination attempt on Teddy Roosevelt. Am I crazy? Were those political figures? I'm sorry. Assassination attempt on the Pope. Assassination attempt on Tucker Carlson. This is if you put in T. Assassination attempt on T. The first thing that should come up, Mary, is Trump. Are you kidding me? This kind of stuff I feel is so gross, and it is a form of election interference. And if you think back to the 2016 election, you have somebody who actually tabulated the number of votes that this sort of thing sways, said that it got Hillary Clinton, Google alone, and the way that they autofill in their search terms, 2.6 million more votes went to Hillary Clinton in 2016. And in the 2020 election, the Google results and the vote reminders favored the Democrats and shifted the 2020 election results by at least 6 million votes. So I would love to hear from Google how they feel that this is not election interference, Mary. I think it's gross at the very least, but we see what you're doing over at Google, and this is also something that thwarts the democratic process in our country. If you suffer from chronic pain, listen up. I think you guys know that I am a fitness fanatic and am always looking for ways to improve my health. That's when I discovered a turmeric supplement called Golden Revive Plus. After taking it for just a few weeks, I started to feel relief in places I didn't even know I had pain. This stuff is incredible for reducing pain in your knees, back, hips, elbows, hands, or feet. And I wanted to share it with as many people as possible. That's why I'm recommending it on my podcast with a special discount just for the Right View listeners until August 31st. You can get 30% off your first order of Golden Revive Plus. Just head over to goldenrevive.com and use promo code Trump at checkout. Over 300,000 Americans just like you are already using Golden Revive Plus to get and stay pain-free. Again, head over to goldenrevive.com and use promo code Trump at checkout for 30% off your first order. We've all seen how quickly life can change. The outcome of a single event can impact our entire nation. Now more than ever, it's crucial to be prepared. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your family with ReadyWise emergency food. With ReadyWise emergency food, you're covered, not just for the worst, but for anything life throws your way. Enjoy peace of mind knowing you have delicious, nutritious meals ready when your family needs them. ReadyWise has a huge selection of freeze-dried meals from breakfast to pasta dishes. You can be assured your food will be good to eat when you need it with their 25-year shelf life. ReadyWise is an American company that cares about its fellow citizens, you, and is committed to your safety. Visit ReadyWise.com and use promo code Trump20 at checkout for 20% off any regular priced items. That's ReadyWise.com, promo code Trump20.
Absolutely. And one of the search results, if you even stop typing in T and you put in Donald, so you're doing assassination attempt Donald, and you would figure Trump would be the very next thing that pops up, and it's not. It's Donald Duck that pops up.
Oh my God.
And so it's just a humanizing campaign. Essentially, they just want to make sure that Donald Trump is not a human. We shouldn't care about whether or not his life was in jeopardy. We shouldn't care about what effects this would make on his family life, what effects this would make on the country. And it absolutely is an election interference. And on top of that, I saw today that if you ask Meta AI to talk about the assassination attempt, it was tried to say that it was a fake hoax. And if you put in the picture, the most perfect picture you could possibly think of for a political man to be standing up there right after an assassination attempt, and then he's got his hand in the air, it galvanized so many voters. It made everybody so proud to be American again. If you put that picture into Instagram now or Facebook, essentially, it says that a fact checker has looked at this photo and has said that it has been altered and it will no longer allow the photo to go up. I mean, we're talking about a rewrite of history in real time right now. And I already see it. Like, I obviously have leftist friends. I mean, I don't think that you can go around this country without having any friends that, don't agree with you at 100% of the time. And even they're saying, well, look, it might have been, a hoax. I don't think he really got shot in the ear. And it just exasperates the problem when you have CNN reporters tweeting out and saying, I've been holding this in for a very long time, but I don't think that he actually got shot in the ear. And there's been no proof that he's gotten shot in the ear. And then you go in the comment section, it's like an award-winning journalist took a photo of literally the bullet whizzing by, and you can see the momentum of the bullet in the air going behind his head. Like, how can you honestly say that he didn't get shot in the ear? And then when you have the FBI coming out and saying, oh, it might be shrapnel, oh, it might be these other things, it's not necessarily could be a bullet. And they had such a big backlash to that they had to come out with a separate statement and say, no, it appears that he was shot in the ear. And they had to backtrack that statement in Congress. But the problem is, They already said it in Congress. And so their backtracking is going to reach such a smaller audience than whenever they go to a congressional hearing and say it in front of Congress. And that's the whole point. They want to try and sway the election towards the Democrat Party, because as long as the Democrat Party is in charge, they all stay in power. It's not about the elected officials. It's about everybody running the show behind the scenes and making sure that they can still have their hand in the pot.
Chrissy, I don't even know what to say. This is my father-in-law. I watched in real time this happen with my kids, by the way, watching at the same time. And it felt like an eternity that I had to wait to see him actually stand up. I mean, I'll be honest, there were moments that I thought he was dead. I think a lot of people thought that. The fact that you have people out there right now who are trying to downplay what happened, or say that it was a setup, that it was a hoax, that we just set this up as a campaign. I mean, I have a visceral, like, physical reaction to that, because it is that gross that somebody says that. But I feel sad, because I felt like in the wake of that, there was this moment where it felt like everybody came together, just for a moment, just for a brief moment. People were all in line with, oh my God, this happened in America. Could you imagine for a second right now, if this person had been successful, what that would have meant, not just for our family, but for the entire country and the entire world, I would argue. We had such an opportunity, I think, to really come together. And the fact that you have people out there claiming that this was fake, this is a hoax. Somebody died. Okay, 3 people got shot. One of them was Donald Trump. However much they want to sway that on the other side. And I just, I can't even put it into words. It just feels like such a shame that we are at such a divisive time in our country, that this is the crazy stuff coming out on the other side. I can't even believe it.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. But I think part of it just goes to simple election politics right now. I think it's undeniable. I talk about my fiance a lot because he's just so not involved in politics. And he always says, I really think Donald Trump is going to win. I go to my office and people that wouldn't talk about politics. Everybody's talking about Donald Trump and how much they like him. And this was not a conversation you would have in 2016 or 2020 or 2023. You wouldn't have this conversation.
It's true.
Yeah.
But it's a common thing to talk about it. You know, this is, again, very silly. Went on a party bus this weekend dressed as Ben Franklin. We went as the founding fathers of America.
I love it.
And we drove past Donald Trump at the Bitcoin convention downtown Nashville. We're all going through there. And I can't tell you, USA chants, Patriot chants, we love Trump chants. Some girl went as Donald Trump. She dressed up as Trump and walked through downtown. No one was booing her. People were like, yeah, we love it. We love it. In a downtown of a liberal city. Like, this is just, it's changed the election dynamics forever. And they can't grapple with the fact that something that some crazy looned person did has now impacted Donald Trump in a positive way. It has to be a conspiracy theory to them, because no one can wrap their brain, if they're that far left, into the idea that people now like the guy.
Yeah, and it's not a conspiracy theory. Like, I was in Michigan at the time of the assassination attempt, and when I showed up, so my in-laws live in one of the wealthiest suburbs in Michigan. It's right outside of Detroit. When I showed up, there was not a single campaign sign, not for Biden, not for Trump. And I thought, okay, this is probably pretty typical. No one wants to lose their country club friends. No one wants to get kicked out of the garden club. You know, they want to stay in their little social circles, and they're going to keep it hidden. After the assassination attempt, I would go out every single day to go and run errands and do all of these different things. And one by one, Trump signs were popping up everywhere, to the point the day before I left, they had a pickleball court that was pretty close to their house. And the entire lining of the fence was just Trump signs all the way around each side. And of course, they were super high to make it hard for people to rip them down. But it was just indicative of where we are. And then, you know, driving across Texas, you're seeing like, save Trump, save America, like all of these different signs popping up where they weren't even a month ago. And I think Chrissy's completely right. Like, this completely changed people being able to talk about it. Now you see a man who had his life almost taken from him in front of the world, not just in front of America, but in front of the world. And it gave people the confidence when he stood up and said, fight, 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 it gave people the breathing room to be able to stand up and say, you're right, we're going to fight. And we're not just going to fight for, local politics. We're going to fight for you. We're going to fight for this country. And I think that Chrissy's completely right. People are talking about it now.
I'm glad. I'm really glad. Obviously, it's my last name, so we know where I am, and I can't escape that. But, I think because there was this huge surge of support for Donald Trump, and look, you had the assassination attempt. 2 days later, we were at the convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Republican National Convention. And I think had I been a Democrat watching all of these things transpire, I would have been like, pack it up, folks. Like, we're done here. There's really, what do you do? There's so much support behind Donald Trump. The party is unified coming out of that convention. I don't think anyone can argue against that. You had Nikki Haley show up. You had Ron DeSantis show up. You had everybody there on the same page, focused, and all coalescing behind Donald Trump. And I can very clearly see that they had a panic moment. They pushed Biden out that weekend. They've shoved Kamala Harris down everybody's throats. They're trying to manufacture all of this momentum behind her. And as we noted at the top of the show, they're trying to completely erase her record. And one of the things they're trying to convince you is that she was never the border czar. So you had on CNN this weekend, Elizabeth Warren, and one of the things she said, by the way, 100% Kamala Harris was the border czar. Just go look up the tapes. Look at that. I'm sure they had press releases and stuff, by the way, from the White House that we can look up, right?
There's literally a video of Biden calling her the border czar that was going around X. You can't escape it when there's that much evidence. They can take down whatever they want, but the American people aren't that stupid.
But here's the scariest part to me. She has failed as border czar. She went down to Texas one time, didn't even go to the Rio Grande Valley where you had the bulk of the illegal immigrants coming into the country. She never dealt with it. The root causes, all that trash that she tried to tell us all. Okay, you didn't do anything. You have 11 million plus people that we know of that have come over into this country. And Elizabeth Warren said this weekend on a show that on CNN, she says that Kamala Harris will work with Congress to create a pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants. I don't know, Mary, that seems like a bit of a frightening sell to me. We have a lot of problems in this country right now because these people have broken our laws to come here. We cannot take it's taxing all of our systems, our healthcare systems. You look at the city of New York, it's costing $12 billion over the course of 3 years to the city of New York. You got so many issues because of it. I don't know. Do we think that that's going to be a great selling point for Kamala Harris as she tries to run for president, pathway to citizenship for people who broke our laws to come here illegally?
Absolutely not. This is not 2016 anymore. The massive illegal immigration that's happened under Biden has swayed the American voters' view on illegal immigration and the way that it affects their communities and the way it affects their being able to get a job, afford, groceries on the table and all that stuff. I spoke to an immigration activist on Friday, and he was talking about how it specifically affects Black jobs in America and how he's seeing that when he goes to Atlanta, when he goes to Chicago, and when he goes to Philadelphia, how that is galvanizing Black voters. And they're actually going to be out doing man on the streets in Chicago during the DNC convention.
Oh, good.
Which I'm like, please send me all of that footage because I cannot wait to see what these people are saying. And essentially, he's talking about how, there might be some sort of propaganda machine that'll work on people that aren't being, directly affected by illegal immigration. But these smaller communities that already have rampant crime, already have terrible economic policies being weighed down on them, are in food deserts, is what they like to call them, whenever they can't get grocery stores near them, and all of these types of things. Illegal immigration only makes that worse. And then when you talk about these inner city kids that are, their parents send them to after school programs in order to keep them out of gang life and in order to keep them out of crime, whenever they're being pushed out and put into, back in the home, back in the gang life and all this stuff in order to make way for illegal immigrants to take over the shelters, to take over community centers. That directly affects voters. And that's what I was speaking about earlier when I was saying she might have a honeymoon right now, but it's not going to last very long whenever these voters come right back down to earth and feel these policies every day. And you could have someone come out from the Biden administration and talk about how, the border crossings are down and we're not feeling this. Okay, even if that were true, which I don't believe it is, because if you look at any reporting from Ginny Taylor to any of the Fox News reporting, you can see that none of that stuff is true. They're still coming over in droves. But even if that was true, the people that are already here are too many. And they're already affecting our communities in such a drastic way, and not even just economically, but when these videos of these women getting attacked are going viral and they're speaking out and they're saying, I'm afraid to go out and get groceries now because I was just punched in the face 3 times and almost sexually assaulted. It's those types of things that I think that galvanize small communities, that galvanize neighborhoods, and against this Democratic ploy to try and say that illegal immigration is going to be good. Let's just give them a pathway and it'll all get better. If you give a pathway to a criminal, they're still going to be a criminal.
Well, yeah, and I can't think of a way to do the worst possible thing, Chrissy. You're telling people, oh, well, if you want to be an American citizen, then just come on over. Here's the thing that gets me, that Elizabeth Warren argued this on CNN, and I hear it constantly. This is a talking point very clearly, just like the card that they sent out to all the Democrats last week to say, oh, here's what you need to say about Kamala Harris. She was never, the borders are, all that nonsense. The talking point that they keep regurgitating on the left is that had Republicans in Congress been willing to, they could have secured the southern border. I'm sorry, there is a law on the books right now that says if you are not a United States citizen, you can't just cross over our border and stay here. You shouldn't be here. So the idea that they're going to try to sell people, Chrissy, like, oh, yeah, it's the Republicans' fault. Excuse me, we had a Republican president in Donald Trump. And if you remember, we had a Republican House and Senate for a while he was in office, and you never had lower border crossings. We didn't need to do some big, vote in Congress on it. We just needed to enforce the laws as they are written and on the books right now. So that's a talking point very clearly they are putting out there. But something else I want to point out too, and something that I think is constantly in the back of my mind, I talked about it in my convention speech the other week, is the fact that you have people with ties to terrorist organizations who are coming here right now. Just last week, apparently, you had 3 people who are on a Palestinian terror watch list try to come across the border. These people, thank God, were arrested, but those are the ones we caught. In the time Donald Trump was in the White House, 2017 to 2020, you had 26 people on the terror watch list apprehended at the southern border. Fiscal year 2022, there were 98. Fiscal year 2023, 169. The number of people on terror watch lists who we have caught has escalated at such a rate that I would not be surprised if in the next couple months we see some sort of a terrorist attack right here on U.S. soil, Chrissy. And it scares the hell out of me.
And there's intel reports that people are leaking to independent journalists that do corroborate that feeling. I also feel like I've been screaming about this story on Underreported Stories for as long as I can. We are going to see an attack on a young woman or a young man in an Uber. There is an ongoing problem where existing Uber drivers will sell their Uber accounts to illegal immigrants, and you no longer have any clue who is driving you. This is particularly happening in Miami and in Florida, which is absolutely crazy, and in parts of Texas and parts of Arizona. Please, 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 to anybody that cares to listen, be so careful. The normal things, the normal amenities that we have in our life are no longer sacred and no longer safe in America right now. And when you have to witness that, which we have with somebody like Laken Riley, Rachel Moore, and Christy Thibodeau, the list goes on of young women that have been assaulted by mostly minor illegal immigrants. We are going to see that again, I believe, this year in terms of the Uber dilemma. And I promise you, I can't think of a better rallying cry for sorority girls than that.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true. It's so true. I mean, God, I take Ubers, it's like we all have to think about these things, and we shouldn't have to think about that. That's terrible. It's terrifying. But Before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Joy Reid. She is one of our biggest fans. I'm just kidding. Obviously.
Like, Laura, where are you going with this?
I'm being very sarcastic right now. She clearly is not a fan of ours. And she made this absurd claim last week after watching my kids and my niece Kai, who spoke at the convention, who did an incredible job, that you shouldn't fall for this, that this is all a stunt. You can tell those grandkids don't like him. They were just there as a stunt. Let me tell you something. My kids are 4 and 6 years old. I dare anybody with a 4-year-old, that's my daughter, the young one who was sitting on my father-in-law's lap, to try and tell them they're going to be part of a stunt or you need to act a certain way. They're going to act the opposite way. They're never going with the flow. They're never doing it was late at night. This is like 10 o'clock at night. It was very late for my kids, but I wanted them to be there in the front row to watch my husband, Eric, while he was giving his speech. And so they came in. I had them sitting a little away so they weren't like fidgeting in the front, and I was going to have them come sit with me. My daughter just climbed in my father-in-law's lap, and that's the rest is history. The fact that Joy Reid is this disgusting, that she tries to claim that my kids don't have a great relationship with my father-in-law, with their grandfather. How dare you, Joy Reid? You don't know anything. You don't know our family. You don't know what we've been through. I thought it was absolutely disgraceful, Mary, to hear this. But then again, this is the kind of trash that you get from people on the left. They are so deeply, they just suffer so severely from their Trump derangement syndrome, truly, that they can't even keep grandchildren, a 4 and a 6-year-old, out of it. It was, what did you think? What do you think of Joy Reid?
I think this just really speaks again to the play to dehumanize Trump.
Yeah.
If he looks like a loving, doting family man, if he looks like a loving, doting grandfather, then that hits at their ability to paint him as the evil dictator that's going to come in and ruin America. And I watched Kai's speech. I thought it was so great. I mean, you could tell that she was nervous, like walking in, but then when Don Jr. was standing up there with her and gave her the hug, and then she went over there and she gave the speech from the heart, and she started talking about how, I had to remind him that I'm a Trump so he can't get inside my head. It's like, yes, it's exactly what the voters wanted to see. They wanted to see, how does he interact with these kids? He calls me at school and he asks how my golf game's going. He's impressed with my academics. That's my dad. That's my dad calling me to talk to the kids and asking them, what academic excellence award they won that week. And, I think that really brings him that humanity that a lot of these Democrats try to strip from him. She wasn't the only one. The View went on a rampage about the same thing, about how don't believe anything that you're saying. This isn't really true. It's all for the aesthetic. It's all the Republican Party's just trying to play this narrative. And it's like, no, this is why the American people fell in love with him in 2016. They looked at all of his children. They weren't looking at the grandchildren at the time. They were looking at all of his children being successful, being stand-up people. Then you look at, someone like Biden in 2020, where his son is a crackhead, his daughter is in and out of rehab. And it's like, you look at the fruits of your labor. What kind of parent were you to these children? Well, your children are super successful. Then that's great for you. And that shows like what kind of dad you were. And then now you look at the grandchildren and they're just as loving and kind and funny and have that great charisma that we all expect from Trump. And then, what are they going to do? They're going to have to sit back and cry and call foul because there's no other play here. It was too powerful of a moment to see. Even my in-laws, they were talking about how sweet it was to see the grandchildren going up on Donald Trump's lap, because it's the same thing that my girls do. They can't help themselves. It's like they don't understand they're on national TV. They don't understand that millions and millions of people are watching. So when they're pulling at his jacket or trying to give him a kiss or, doing all of these loving little moments with him, they just see him as their grandfather who's sitting up there in the press box. And so I think that is really all it is. It's a dehumanizing campaign, and they just want to make him look like this evil dictator that he's not.
And by the way, my daughter apparently was like chewing on her hair the whole time. I was like, were you chewing on your hair? Like, my mom. Yeah, by the way, I did not know how that would go, Chrissy. I said to Eric, I was like, look, I'm going to try to have the kids there because he really wanted them to be there for his speech. And whatever. I mean, God, it's a political convention. Could you imagine something more boring for a 4 and 6-year-old?
No.
And it was late and the whole thing. And I had my mom actually was like up just above, like a couple of rows above. And she was helping. Yeah, she was helping like maintain the kids and keep them busy.
As an exit strategy.
Yeah, that was definitely the exit strategy. But I didn't know how they would do. I thought maybe they would come for like a few minutes and then everybody would get bored or have to go to the bathroom and like leave. And you know what? They did great. And I'm glad people got to see that side of my father-in-law, because really it's the side that Mary's right. I think they're desperate to tell you that Donald Trump is not a human being, that it doesn't matter that he got shot. It's all fake, and you shouldn't feel anything for this man except hatred and detest him and all these things. But I hope that people got to see a little bit of the Donald Trump that I get to see and that my kids get to see. And obviously it was a very special moment for all of us in the family to be together after such a terrifying incident the Saturday before, to be all there together. So I hope people got that side of him. I don't know. Obviously Joy Reid was very, very excited to see it.
Yeah, well, Joy Reid is a crazy person, but I actually want to go back really quick to your comments about Kai and everything.
Yeah.
What I think was actually very influential that entire week is Mary had made the point earlier in the show about how 18 to 24, and I had made this point too, that 18 to 24-year-olds, they're a little stupid, and they almost always tend to vote left. We are seeing a 26-point shift to Republicans among young men under the age of 26. And what happened when Kai Trump got up there is people were paying attention and they said, oh, never heard of her before. Kai Trump, plug it in my phone. She's a scratch golfer. Great. Now you got half the guys obsessed with her. Then the same week, Bryson DeChambeau puts out a whole video with Trump, and Trump plays incredible in this golf game. It was the most, I watched all 54 minutes. I want to murder my husband, fiance, whatever he is, when he puts golf on our TV, but I watched all 54 minutes of that video. It was so interesting. It was so humanizing. And all of that combined, I think, had a massive impact on young men under the age of 30, which is, again, a group of people that traditionally Republicans cannot get. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out now.
Well, there's just a little time left, but it really feels like a lot of time left until November 5th. And we'll see how it all shakes out. I can tell you it will be very busy for all of us. So Mary and Chrissy, thank you both for taking a little time for us today here at The Right View.
Yeah, absolutely.
To everybody at home, as always, thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down. Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.